Hey, welcome to Heroes Keep Game Reviews and Retrospectives. Today I'm sharing my thoughts on the second open beta for Resident Evil Reverse that took place from April 21st through April 22nd. Resident Evil Reverse is another in a long line of Capcom's experiments to bring competitive multiplayer to the Resident Evil series. And much like the Umbrella Corporation's experiments in the games, the results are often puzzling and horrifying abominations. That's not to say I haven't enjoyed any of these attempts. I am a huge fan of Operation Raccoon City. While Resident Evil has gotten the co op multiplayer right many times, that was the only instance where the competitive multiplayer really made sense. That's because it was team based and they put you on different sides of the Raccoon City conflict rather than just throwing all of the main characters into an arena and having them duke it out amongst themselves. Unfortunately, that's exactly what Reverse does. I don't think a bunch of angry fans have been writing Capcom telling them what Resident Evil really needs is Leon shooting Claire in the face a bunch of times. At least I hope that's not what's happening. I don't really know who asked for this. What Reverse adds to the standard deathmatch formula is even though you spawn as a human character, every time you get killed, you immediately respawn at the location of your death as one of the bioorganic weapons or BOWs from the series. There are also these virus canisters you can pick up throughout the level while you're playing as a human character, which determine the kind of BOW you spawn as. You're limited to picking up two at a time, and if you manage to get two, you'll come back as fan favorite enemies Tyrant or Nemesis. If you pick up just one before you die, you respawn as Jack Baker from Resident Evil 7. And it's pretty cool to see him in a setting with classic Resident Evil characters. He's probably my favorite BOW to use in Reverse, since he can swing around his giant scissor chainsaw combination weapon, which makes it pretty easy to hit your target and does a ton of damage in the process. One virus canister can also spawn you as a Hunter Gamma, which is the smaller frog like sibling of the traditional big hunter we all know and love. But it really would have just been cooler to play as the big classic hunter. If you die without any canisters, you respawn as a fat molded from Resident Evil 7. And they were really intimidating enemies in that first person survival horror setting, but they seem pretty lame and silly in this one. At least they do have a convenient self destruct attack, which is nice because if you spawn as a fat molded, it probably means you were getting dominated by the other players. So this offers you an easy way to recover some kills. And this respawning system is also tied to a revenge system where your kill streak is lost upon death, but it can be earned back by killing the player who killed you. And it is one of the better ideas in the game, but it's let down by a number of factors. The first one being the scoring system. The scoring system is just overly complicated. While you'd expect one kill to net you 1 point, it actually gives you 20 points as a human character, a bit less as a BOW. But then, of course, kill streaks will boost that score exponentially. And you're shown a breakdown on screen of how many points you earn every time you get a kill. But there are so many categories for points, and they're shown so briefly that you really don't have time to register that information in the heat of battle. Other bonuses are rewarded for killing the top 3 players on the leaderboard. You'll see their names displayed in the upper left corner of the screen with a unique icon next to each of them, and that same icon appears above their characters' heads in game. Eliminating the first place character gives you a full 9 bonus points, while fewer are rewarded for second and even less are given for third. And while this seems like it could lead to some strategic gameplay, you'll pretty much be focusing your fire on whichever player you happen to run into first. Otherwise, they'll get the drop on you and kill you for sure. So, making an effort to hunt down players in first, second, or third place to maximize the points you earn isn't really a viable strategy. And getting those bonus points for killing them feels more like luck than an earned reward. Simple traditional deathmatch scoring works so well because when you can see that the top player has, for example, 10 kills and you have 6 kills, it gives you a solid goal to strive for and amps up the competition. Being able to clearly and immediately see that you need 4 kills to take the lead gives you that extra push needed to work toward that goal and be even more conscious of avoiding any costly mistakes. When points are rewarded for so many different criteria, most of which are completed passively without you even being aware of them or actively seeking them out, they become a more abstract concept in the background and take that focused sense of urgency and purpose out of the equation. What's worse is that you're actually punished for dying in reverse, causing you to lose points. And what this all means is checking your score in this game is about as fun as checking your online credit score. In addition to the premise, the core hook of Reverse's deathmatch falls flat, leaving only one thing that could redeem it, and that is whether the combat itself is any fun. The first thing I noticed that felt lacking was the camera, which allows you to pan 360 degrees around your character. It feels a bit more loose and unwieldy than the usual over the shoulder camera we see in modern third person RE games. Fortunately, the camera sensitivity for both aiming and running can be adjusted independently, and lowering it seems almost required for the aiming, but it never quite solves that feeling that this isn't the ideal style of camera for shooting in third person. The 360 camera makes more sense when you're playing as BOWs, but it also zooms out a bit more during those moments, which makes it feel even more clumsy in the tight corridors of the Raccoon Police Department, the one level that's available in the beta. Having an over the shoulder camera while playing as a human character, and a not quite as zoomed out 360 camera while playing as a BOW probably would have been the ideal solution. Returning from Resident Evil 6 is the ability to dodge roll, which admittedly comes in handy in a multiplayer setting, but it's still one of the worst additions the series has ever seen. I do have to credit them for attaching a stamina bar to it this time around, so it can only be used 3 times before requiring a lengthy recharge, ensuring it isn't spammed constantly. When it comes to weapons and abilities, each character has 2 unique signature weapons: a sidearm with infinite ammo, and a more powerful weapon that spawns with little ammo but can be replenished by picking up ammo boxes throughout the level. Both human and BOW characters also have 2 unique skills that can be used on a cooldown. The skills appear decent at first glance, since many of them are similar to abilities that were effective in ORC, but they're pretty underwhelming in practice here. For example, Hunk's active camouflage ability is just like Vector's in ORC, but he's much more visible while using it, so it's really only mildly useful. It's cool that his secondary ability, a melee knife attack, gains extra damage while the active camo is in use, but the melee skills in this game don't lock onto the target, so most of the time you'll end up stabbing the air and leaving yourself wide open to a counterattack. The BOWs are able to lock onto their enemies at any time, so it does seem kind of unusual that the human characters can't do the same for their melee attacks. There's also a feature in place to counter the OP nature of the BOW characters. They spawn with a constantly draining health bar. But honestly, it seemed like it would provide a better balance if this health bar drained even faster, because BOWs still stick around for a decent amount of time. And when you encounter them as a human character, it is a pretty one sided battle. You don't have a great chance of surviving. The last issue I had with the game is the temporary invulnerability when spawning. It's fine when spawning as a human character, since you respawn at a spawn point away from the action, but since BOW characters spawn wherever a human player was killed, you can often run into several invulnerable BOWs right in the middle of the map and get slaughtered with very little chance to avoid them. This just further adds to the chaotic feel of the game. There are many mechanics in Reverse that seem somewhat well thought out, but most of the strategy they were intended to promote goes right out the window the second all of its elements are brought together. I did only get in about an hour of playtime with the beta, so maybe more time with these systems would allow them to be put to better use, but that hour was so devoid of enjoyment that I really don't see myself spending any more time with it. My initial impression is that Reverse has an ill-conceived premise, sloppy deathmatch design with a self-defeating scoring system, and combat that's ultimately chaotic and unsatisfying. Reverse is being provided for free to everyone who purchases Resident Evil Village, and I think that's really the only way its existence can be justified. So that does it for my impressions of Resident Evil Reverse. Thanks for watching, and if you played the beta, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it in the comments. I'm also curious if anyone has any favorite multiplayer modes in the Resident Evil series, and what kind of approach you'd like to see a competitive multiplayer entry take in the future. This is a brand new channel I just started, so I really appreciate it if you can subscribe and stick with me. And I hope we can keep the conversation going in future videos. But until then, this is Heroes Keep, wishing you a happy Resident Evil 25th anniversary.